Okay, this is the grade 8 review on integers, chapter 8 on integers, grade 8. The first question is a true-false question. It says 8 take away 10 plus negative 2 is a greater number than negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 2. True or false? So the first thing we're going to do is actually find out what this actually works out to be. And there are only addition and subtraction. And in BEDMAS, keep in mind there are 4 steps: brackets, exponents, division, multiplication in the order they appear from left to right, and addition, subtraction in the order they appear from left to right. There are no brackets in this particular question, even though people say there are. A lot of people get confused because they see things that look like brackets, but the only reason that's there or this is there is to separate the integer sign from the operation sign. So those are not brackets as in look inside here and whatever's inside, simplify that. Those are brackets to separate signs from operations. So there are no brackets, there are no exponents, but there are no division, multiplication, but there is addition, subtraction. So we simply do it as we see it from left to right. So for this one, 8 take away 10 is negative 2, and negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4. So this side has a value of negative 4. Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. This side has a value of negative 2. Is negative 4 greater than negative 2? No, negative 4 is not greater. Therefore, the answer is false. It's a bigger looking number, but it's not a bigger number. Question 2, this shows the product of positive 3 times positive 2. 68% say true, and so 31% says false. I am adding 2 groups of positive 3. And this picture shows adding 2 groups of positive 3, but this statement says adding 3 groups of positive 2. That would look like this. Adding 1 group, and then cloning it. Adding 2 groups, adding 3 groups. They are not the same picture. So the answer is false. That does not show positive 3 times positive 2. It shows positive 2. The correct answer is it shows positive 2 times positive 3. Although it's the same product, it is not the same question. So most of you got that one wrong. Be careful. Modeling's a long time ago. This is interesting. Question 3. Removing 3 groups of positive 4 equals negative 12. Okay. Removing 3 groups of positive 4. I am removing 1 group of positive 4. I am removing 2 groups of positive 4. I am not removing 3 groups. If I actually took that picture and did it one more time, that would be true, right? But the answer is false. It's removing, the actual equation should be removing 2 groups of positive 4 equals negative 8. That's the actual equation. Everyone got that one right. I know in the remotes it's wrong, but yeah. Wow. Everybody got this one right. And the reason why is because you don't actually have to multiply them out, do you? Right? You don't care about what the answer is. You just want to know if it's positive or negative. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 negative integers, which means there's an even number of negative integers. Every pair of negative integers, when multiplied, will give you a positive product. So therefore, if you multiply them all out, you will always have a positive answer or a positive product if it's an even number of numbers. And if it's an odd number, you'll always have a negative product. Question 5, everybody got it right. The answer is negative 20. Question 6, most people got it right. It says negative 20 divided by negative 20. Now, in the other class, a student came up to me and said, Mr. McDonald, when you divide integers, do you keep flip change? And I said, well, let's see. Let's try this one. So what is, and I just gave this question here, what is 4 divided by 2? And she said it was 2. I said, well, let's keep flip change. So if we keep flip and change, do we still get 2? No, we get -8. So sometimes when you're confused about rules and you're tied into what is the rule for this or what's the rule for that, just ask yourself a simple question and see if it works. And sometimes that's the best way to get it. So no, some people confuse integer laws with fraction laws or rules, but they don't. So this one here is 20 divided by 20 is 1. Negative divided by negative is a positive, so your answer is +1. There are still some people who think any number divided by itself is 0. That still happens a lot. That's subtraction, not division. And a negative divided by negative is not a negative. Question 7. 2/3 of the class got this one right. Let's see where they went wrong. So the first thing I'm going to do is look for all of my multiplication division. In this case, there's a multiplication here, and there's a division there. So -2 take away -10 times +3 is -30. I want to keep it in brackets because I want to separate this subtraction sign with the negative product of -10 and 3. 10 divided by -2 is -5. Now watch what happens here. This is a subtraction sign, so that still stays there. This becomes -5. All right. Now we have just subtraction, and we're going to use that keep flip change rule because we like to use it to get the correct answer. -2 take away -30 is the same answer as -2 plus +30, which is 28. 28 take away -5 is the same thing as 28 plus +5, which gives you 33 as your answer. Okay? How many made a mistake right here? Confusion right there. A little bit? Confusion? A little bit? All of you, except for one person, I think, got this one right. Let's just look at this one real quick. Is that a division symbol? Yes, it is. Wow, this is a harder question. So brackets is first. So right here, 5 take away 10 is -5. So all I did was simplify my brackets. Now I have a multiplication here and I have a division here. 10 take away, 10 divided by 2 is 5. Same signs is a +5. 10 take away 5 is 5. Question 9. What is the largest product of any two integers? If you took these two integers and multiply them together, I know my answer is going to be positive, so I'm going to ignore the fact that a negative times a negative. So 22 times 15 is 330. If I do 20 times 16, I get 320, which is not as large as the product of -22 and -15. So for 10% of you, you got that wrong. But 78% of you were able to figure out that this negative number times this negative number gives you a larger product than this positive number times this positive number. Question 10 says most of you got this right. The temperatures for the week are these particular degrees. What is the average temperature of these? So you got to add them together. -9 plus +9 makes 0. 0 plus -7 is -7. So the sum, when you add them all together, is -7. -7 divided by the 7 days that are there gives you an average temperature for the week of -1. Okay, question 11 says, a plane ascends at a rate of 20 meters per second for 2 minutes. Then abruptly descends at a rate of 15 meters per second for 3 minutes. If it started at an altitude of 1.5 kilometers, what is the new altitude in meters? So I'm going to draw this one first. This is how I'm going to kind of solve it. So I know the plane is up, and I'm going to draw a really poorly done plane. Well, that's not big. That's a plane. That looks like a plane. The plane is in the air. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this. I'm going to put the height of the plane when it starts. Now it's 1.5 kilometers, but since the other units are in meters, I'm going to do a simple conversion and say, instead of saying 1.5 kilometers, I'm going to say 1,500 meters above ground. Now then it says it ascends. Now, ascends might be one of those words you're unfamiliar with because as a grade 8 student, you don't get the opportunity to use the word ascend in a sentence very often, but that means goes up. And it goes up at a rate of 20 meters a second for 2 minutes. So mathematically speaking, if it's 20 meters a second, multiply that by the number of seconds, in this case 2 minutes, 120 seconds, which is 2 minutes. So instead of saying 2 minutes, I could say 120 seconds. That's going to give me an altitude difference of plus 2400, so 2,400 meters up is what it went. Okay, and then it goes down at a rate of 15 meters per second. So 15 meters, I'll multiply it over here instead. So for that one, it goes down 15 meters. So we're going to use a negative 15 for a total of 3 minutes, which is 180 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to multiply 15 by 180. I'll use a calculator for this one. 15 times 180 is 2,700 meters down. Okay, so it's going to go down 2,700 meters. Okay, where does it end up? Okay, so there's my picture that kind of describes it. I'm going to write out one full sentence that would be the expression, an integer statement that represents the situation. So 1,500, which is your starting altitude, plus 20 times 120, plus negative 15 times 180. That statement would represent everything you needed to do. This is the starting altitude, this is the ascending part, and this is the descending part. And the most important part about it is that you use the negative 15 as your integer, which describes the change in descending. Okay, so when you work all this out, you get 1,500 plus 2,400 plus negative 2,700. You're going to end up with 3,900 plus negative 2,700. You get 2,200 meters. Okay, which means, sorry, I made a mistake somewhere there. 3,900. Oh, sorry. 1,200 meters is what it should be. 1,200 meters. So therefore, the final height of the plane after that 5 minutes of going up and down is 1.2 kilometers above the ground, or 1,200 meters above the ground. Question 12 says solve by modeling. It gives you plus 3 times negative 4. Again, the answer is not the hard part, but what does it mean? From a modeling perspective, we can think of this as saying adding 3 groups of negative 4. Okay, so if we take a group of negative 4, okay, and put that little arrow there, if I was to create a little space here where I could put adding 3 groups of negative 4, I'll infinite clone this. There's 1 group, there's 2 groups, there's 3 groups, there's 4 groups of negative 4. Adding, 3 groups of negative 4, not 4 groups, 3 groups. Adding 3 groups of negative 4 results in 12 negatives. So the product of positive 3 and negative 4 is negative 12. The second thing to solve by modeling, it gives you almost the same question, except your first integer is negative. And this one we want to interpret as removing 3 groups of negative 4. Okay? So this time I have to remove 3 groups of negative 4. So when I start with my 0 space with nothing in it, my 0 has to be created by using 0 pairs. So if I think about this, I'm going to infinite clone this 3 times here. Let's see if I can do that. Infinite clone, infinite cloner. I don't think it's going to work, is it? Yes, it will. So there is 0. This whole thing is actually 0. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove 3 groups of negative 4. So there's 1 group of negative 4 gone. There's 2 groups of negative 4 gone. There's 3 groups of negative 4 gone. And when I do so, what I'm left with is 12 positive, which is the answer to that. And that's the end of the questions. If you have any other questions about the integers, don't hesitate to talk to me about doing a different question before your retest. Hopefully that helped you out.